Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Deckin Around Deck Specs. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Conjuror Community Playing Cards by the Conjuror Community. But before we jump into it, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. So, before we even jump into it too far, this deck recently launched on Kickstarter. This actually is the final print production here, so this is not a prototype deck, which is why we're doing the deck specs on it. This was printed by USPCC using their web press, part of an unspecified print run, and it's printed on premium crushed stock. So I think one of the interesting things about this deck is just the simplicity of it. Other than the nameplate there where you see it says Conjurer Community and the ad copy and the back design, this looks like a relatively standard deck of bicycle cards, which I think from the point of view of a magician is super important. You want it to be
Yeah.
relatively standard looking. You want it to be, nothing out of the ordinary. And I think, Conjurer Community crushed it with that. The deck handles spectacularly as you'd expect from a crushed by USPCC stock. I think the one interesting thing about it being printed by the web press and being crushed, it doesn't feel as crushed as some of the sheet printed decks, but it still feels amazing. Those two
Yeah.
jokers on the front are probably the most spectacular part of the deck. They have such a unique artistic feel to them. Other than the two jokers and the ace of spades, pretty much everything else is relatively standard. The jokers were actually part of an uh, old piece of vintage art that the community found and decided to use for this deck, which I think is so cool because it actually a joker that's never been a joker before, which is such a
Yeah, that's so
it
cool.
really is so cool. Between that and the back design on this deck, there's so much vintage vibe to it. Um, You'll also notice there's two F cards here. There's a blue backed version of the Joker and then a double backed red and blue double backer gaff card there. The really cool thing about that is it makes for a limitless amount of usage that a magician can get out of this deck. This deck really is pretty much a Swiss Army knife in your pocket for a magician. It really isn't just limited where, a lot of decks you'll see that they include the standard blank face and double backer gaff card, which gives you a handful, maybe two or three tricks you can really do there. That color change Joker and the double backer card give you such limitless potential where really this deck is limited only by your imagination as a magician. So
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it was created by a community of magicians tells you what went into the deck. It's really focused on, um, limitless things that magicians can do, and it's really beautiful.
And so one of the cool things too about this deck, which obviously we didn't touch too much on it, but the back design. The back design is actually a vintage USPCC print that was originally in print around the turn of the 20th century, so the early 1900s. Really didn't get a lot of visibility after that. The last print run on this was actually around the 1990s, and it was on a very uncommon deck. So this back design hasn't been seen in 30 years, and I think this deck crushed it. This is such a cool,
Yeah.
standard looking deck with so much like nuance and flair to it. You could really sit and look at this deck and find new things every time you look at the back design, you look at the cards, everything. So
Yeah, I think Lee actually, we were talking to Lee about the deck, who is, in the Conjuring community, and he was saying that middle design, and I don't
he
know
has a
if,
version two.
yeah, this is a version two of it. The original was had 3 points on it, which kind of made it a one-way back
Yeah.
design.
Well, it definitely made it a
Where
one-way
this
back
one,
design. And
yeah,
that is actually one thing to touch on this. It is a one-way back design, though it is a very subtle one-way back, but that 4-point kind of circular emblem in the center helps make it an even more subtle one-way back design. So, yeah. So excellent deck of cards here. I think really this is something that every magician should have in their toolbox. And one of the cool things about the campaign associated with this is it's not just the deck you're getting, but it's kind of a first step into the Conjurer community. There's a whole kind of course built around this deck that you will be getting access to as part of a backer, to this campaign. So it's worth checking out hands down. And the price of the deck on that campaign is pretty pretty reasonable based on what you're getting, based on the value you're actually getting there. So Thanks so much, everybody, for checking out this episode of Deckin Around Deck Specs. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We drop these deck specs every Tuesday and Friday, so keep an eye out.
Peace.